So hi everyone, this is your favorite friend Jay or Jaylan Salah as you formerly know her, film critic at Geek Vibes Nation and In Session Film. I had the pleasure of watching Mo Crazy Strong, a short documentary about Olympian skier Jeannie Mo Crazy, or as you know, I just recently found out, Jeannie Crane Mosey, and her sister, former world number one skier Jamie Mo Crazy. Jamie is the first woman to double flip in a slopestyle ski run at the X Games. In 2015 at Whirlpool Finals, upon landing a trick, Jamie caught an edge, whiplashed her head into the snow, and then her journey began. As an inspirational woman, an athlete, personally, she inspired me, and I'm sure she will inspire a lot of you. She is also a trained, traumatic brain injury activist. She's an athlete. She's a dreamer. She is someone we can all look up to. Jamie and Jeannie, I'm just so excited to talk to you both.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm excited to be here.
Okay.
Yeah,
What I want to know is,
me as well.
okay, this is wonderful. What I want to know is, Jeannie and Jamie, both of you like have sports as something integral in your lives. So what I want to know is, were you always like that? Like, were you raised to love sports? Were you raised to be sports girls? Or was this something that you caught up? Like, were you raised to have sports as the number one priority in your lives? Did you have other hobbies? Because I'm kind of excited that are not sports related. And I would like to know both your answers. Okay, where is Jeannie? Jeannie, did
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, did you hear my
I thought you could take this one first, Jeannie.
Okay.
Oh, looks like you don't have internet. So I'll take it. So basically, we actually were born into a family that our grandmother was a World Cup downhill champion. She was living in this place called Sun Valley, Idaho, which is where kind of the legends of skiing started. And she was in some of the first Warren Miller ski movies. So both Jeannie and I were put on skis when we were about a year old. So as far as our memories go back, skiing was a part of our life. And we were also raised by a mom who had a federal grant from the government to teach self-esteem to women, which means that she was really into teaching self-esteem to women and allowing us to believe we could accomplish whatever we wanted, no matter what fake ceilings were put on us because of gender or any other ceilings. So I was also born very competitive and ambitious. So I always loved to perform and I loved sports. And when I competed in sports, I wasn't even directly competing against other people. I was mostly doing individual sports like skiing and gymnastics, and I was competing against my own personal best. Every day I would try to surpass my own personal best. So that's kind of how we were raised, with the belief we could accomplish whatever we wanted to accomplish. We just had to build the habits and be able to have the opportunities to build those habits. And skiing was part of our lives forever.
Okay. And what about you, Jeannie?
Yes, so I mean, I'm Jamie's sister, so very much similar stories. Jamie was the one that first switched from the discipline of ski racing into the freestyle discipline because of her gymnastics and ski background. She wanted to combine them, which is freestyle skiing. And then she actually tricked me into my first competition. She was very new to the sport and said that she didn't have a lot of friends in it. And so I had to train with her because it was at our home mountain. So I did the mogul training. And then her and my mom signed me up for the competition and told me the night before, well, we signed you up and we already paid for it. So now you have to compete tomorrow. And I did. And I guess the rest is history. I stuck with it. I ended up focusing in on half pipe, which is my discipline. And I still compete in the World Cup Tour for half pipe skiing.
Okay. So as someone I'm like a writer, a poet. Usually my life is stationary in a way. And you girls are out there in nature, on mountains, on snow, kind of like defying gravity in a way. How does it feel? What is the feeling that you capture when you're skiing or when you're hiking or when you're doing any of those, like amazing outdoor sports? For me, it's mostly like the gym or just swimming. But the idea of going so out of your body or using your body as a way to defy gravity, to control, maybe be part of the environment is something that I want to know more about.
That's an amazing question. There's a quote that I really love and live by because people always ask us if we're scared, and if there's fear, or that you just must be fearless if you do this. And the quote is, what made her so powerful wasn't because she was never afraid, but because she went on so strongly despite the fear. And honestly, it is that aspect of being slightly scared and then doing it anyways that makes you have such this rush of adrenaline and confidence. And, that's kind of the feeling that I think that we go out and seek over and over again in these kind of adrenaline sports is we get scared and then we do it. And then it's like, wow, I can take on the world.
Yeah. And I love sports and I do still ski and I love being active. However, I have also found that with my growing public speaking career, if you're walking out in front of 1,000 people, you get the same adrenaline rush. You're a little nervous, and then you walk out and you're on. And that's kind of very, very similar to performing and skiing. You think about everything and you process it in your mind, but then you need to take some deep breaths. And when you drop in for your run, you're on. Like you have to commit 100%. There's no 50% commitment. So that's something that we both love about adrenaline.
Wow, adrenaline, speaking to the best. Okay, Jeannie, did you want to add something?
Just that, I think that sports and that adrenaline or that fear, getting over the fear, is a lot more accessible than people think. It's like once you do it the first time, once you do something that's scary to you, whether it be sports or speaking or applying for your dream job, then you figure out I can do it again. And that's kind of what helps elevate your life is not limiting yourself because you're scared, but doing it anyways.
Okay, so as I'm growing up, I'm always looking for a presentation in movies because I'm a movie buff, I'm a film critic, I'm always watching movies and I want to see myself in the screen and different parts of myself. It's not always my background, like my race. Sometimes it's even because I'm neurodivergent. Are there neurodivergent characters? Sometimes it's like poets, writers. So which sports movies did you feel like you guys got it? Even if it's not a skier, even if it's just, like a football or, like soccer or hockey, but you felt that this character kind of encapsulated something inside you that no other show or movie or character did.
A good question.
When I was a kid growing up, I really liked Bethany Hamilton's Surfer Girl. And what I embodied in that was that she was a female and had an injury and then surfing. And I actually loved that film prior to my injury, and now post injury I'd like to keep growing my story into encompassing it to being a film kind of under that genre, so narrative fiction film, telling the story of the growth in the athletic career, the tragedy, and then the resilience and overcoming that.
And Jamie?
I think I would say maybe Bend It Like Beckham. Like it has such a fun storyline, and it's also like, there's more depth to the female leads and their desire to go and, do sports and have, it's kind of fun. But I liked that one a lot growing up, just to be like a fierce female athlete and figure out the complications.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jamie, what I want to ask you is now we see Jamie. She's strong and she's empowered. But there was a time when Jamie didn't know where she was going. She like kind of, I'm not saying lost, but she kind of, her world was turned upside down in a way. And she didn't know the end. She didn't know that one day she will be this inspirational leader for other girls, for other athletes, for other people who might have thought their life had ended. Where did you find moments of strength and light in times where you're just clueless? It's so oblivious. What is going to happen? How did you find your strength, your faith, if you think about it that way, your inspiration? How did you find it?
So one of the things in my story is at the very beginning, the critical stages, I have no memory of that. So I don't have memory of multiple months, which can seem scary, but also means that I don't have the memories in my mind of me on the verge of death. I don't have any recollection of that. And so when my mind came back and I started recovering, I wanted to set goals. And I knew from being an athlete in my upbringing to set attainable goals, which are goals you can accomplish to reach your growth goals. So I kind of understood all of that. And then that first winter, when I realized that I wasn't going back to being a professional skier, because when I left the hospital, that was my full intention to return to exactly the life I was living prior. However, when I realized I wasn't going to return to that, that's when I felt the most lost and stuck. And I did a couple of things. One, I started going to psychotherapy. And my mom actually, again, convinced me, kind of tricked me into saying that she had already paid for my therapy class. And actually, a grant that I was a recipient of had already paid for it. So if I didn't go, I would just be wasting their money, which is a really good way to get Jeannie and I to commit to things if we feel like we're going to be wasting someone else's money. So I went to it and it was very life-changing. I cried the whole time. And so going to get help when you have changes in your life can be really helpful. And then the second thing was I went back to university. So being able to have teachers who graded me and have a structure. And this is something that we are big advocates for. Even brain injury survivors who have chronic fatigue or they have headache issues, they have disabilities. Most universities, if you are in contact with them, you can get disability help for your brain injury, but going back and maybe taking one class instead of 4 classes, no matter how you do it, having that structure and forcing you to set goals and set these attainable goals to reach your growth goals is so good for your recovery process. And that was one of the biggest things that helped me figure out who I wanted to be, what identity I wanted to create. Because I always say I'm Jamie 2.0, and there's a lot that went into creating that individual. And part of that is going to getting some education and learning about different things. And getting help, getting support, going to psychotherapy.
Definitely. So you guys talk a lot about your mom, and my mom kind of had a similar mindset in that when I was depressed, she would sign me up for writing classes, for acting classes, for things that would kind of like reignite my passion and my inspiration for being who I was supposedly destined to be, which is a writer, a poet, a film critic, whatever. So I want to know more about your inspirational mom, because I love it when we girls come from background where our mothers don't limit us. They never tell us like you can't do this because you're a girl, or you can't do this because blah blah blah, or because even if like finances were something at a stage. No, some mothers really make you feel limitless, make you feel like life is in front of you. So I want to know more about your mother from both your experiences. How was it growing up with a mother like that? How did she hold you up when you felt you were down? How did her impact and influence on you help you to become the person you are?
Awesome. Yes, we are very close with our mom. She is the third member of our nonprofit team, and as you watched in the film, was a really integral part of Jamie's recovery. Yeah, let's see. I think it was great. It's something in many aspects of my life. I had a really privileged childhood, and it wasn't until I kind of grew up that I realized other people didn't have the same in some ways. I mean, I knew other people didn't have a mom like mine because my mom helped raise a bunch of our neighbors and some other families who didn't have a strong mom figure or a mom at all in their homes. But I didn't really understand how actually fully unique it was. And there's, like you're talking about neurodivergent. I didn't speak until I was 3. Like I just didn't say anything, and I was a really, really shy kid. And everybody told my mom that she had to push me to get my independence and push me. And she was like, no, if I push her, she'll spend the rest of her life feeling uncomfortable and like she's being pushed away and she never got to feel safe. I'm going to let her hold on to me for as many years as she wants to. And, you know, now I compete all over the world. I'm a climate activist. I run a nonprofit. I've been a foster parent. I help lobby for brain injury. I'm a very independent woman, and I credit that a lot to her, where I didn't have to grow up and heal from my childhood. I got to grow up and just advance and have all the support I needed.
Definitely. And Jamie.
Yeah, I think one of the most impactful things was that our mom raised us with the belief to be your own personal best. And when I was a child, I thought that I understood that be your own personal best meant take the steps, set the goals, and be the best. And so, like I mentioned, I was very competitive and I was good at being competitive. When I was 9 years old, I actually won gymnastics state championships, and the next year, and the same year, won the skiing state championships, and was interviewed by the Connecticut Post about how I wanted to combine skiing and gymnastics. So I thought I understood this concept of be your own personal best. However, I really began to understand it after I had my brain injury, because my own personal best varied dramatically. It was no longer what society says is the best, is successful. All of a sudden, my own personal best was swallowing a glass of water after a week of coughing. My own personal best was walking up one flight of stairs with support. I couldn't even do it by myself. And my own personal best had varied so dramatically. However, that same concept that she was teaching us, perform at your own personal best every day, allowed me to continue and have the recovery that I did, because it was so long and so extensive, my recovery process. If I hadn't felt each day I was performing at my own personal best, it wouldn't have happened. And something that's really important with performing at your own personal best, it's every day. So even if stereotypically it's not seen as successful, that's okay. Sometimes your own personal best is to go for a casual walk in the beach, or your own personal best might be to go to Pilates, or your own personal best might be to have a lot of intensive meetings, or your own personal best might be to critique a film. Your own personal best might be to watch a film. It varies dramatically. And so you need to be in tune with yourself and notice what's best for your growth and who you are. And that is what you accomplish every day.
Wow. Seriously, this is so inspirational, which kind of lets me ask you, Jamie, because as someone who was kind of diagnosed later on as a neurodivergent person, it was so hard for me to finally come out with, yes, this is me, and even write about it and even talk about it publicly and try to create a community. And this is where I felt that whatever you have, whatever we carry, we are beyond a definition or a diagnosis or whatever. So I want to know, where was the time where Jamie felt that I want to take this a step further? I'm not just someone who has, like traumatic brain injury. I didn't go through an accident that changed the course of my life. I am more than whatever was given, whatever was assigned to me. When was the point where you felt this? And then you went on and became, the Jamie 2.0.
Well, I actually began to feel that pretty quickly. When I was a couple months out of living in the hospital, I still had very visible disability. So just having a conversation with me, you could tell that I had had this traumatic brain injury. But I began to be hearing that after you have a brain injury, you will be depressed and you will feel you will be unsuccessful, and all these negative words. And so immediately I was like, that's not going to happen to me, and that's not the way it's going to be. And we have firmly created with our foundation that even if you do have stereotypically challenging recoveries, so you still have visible changes in your ability, there are ways that you can create a quality of life that you love. And if you have chronic fatigue, you might not be able to work a 9 to 5 job. But guess what? With the way our world works, there are so many ways to work remote, work set periods of time. There are so many ways that you can feel like you contribute back and you have a purpose and a quality of life that you enjoy, regardless of whether you have a quantifiably successful recovery or not. And I think that's one of the big things in the brain injury world that's really important. And actually kind of created this passion, like I said, when I was a few months out, and I couldn't act on it. I was not done with my healing. I still had to be focused on my healing. So I had this idea for creating this new narrative around brain injury way back, but it took a long time for that actually to start happening and to grow. But just this concept that regardless, there's so many individuals who have had brain injuries, and regardless of your recovery, you can be happy. You can take steps to create a life you love. And there's such a stereotype connected to brain injury that right now there are so many individuals that Jeannie and I have both come in contact with our film festival run, as well as our work, that have had stereotypically successful recoveries. And nobody they work with has any idea that they had a brain injury, because they don't want to say, I was in a coma 30 years ago, because they're worried that the people they work with will expect them to deliver at a lower level. And there's good reason for them to be worried, because too many people are uneducated and believe that if you had a brain injury, that means your delivery will be much worse. However, I firmly believe that there are certain aspects to brain injury and the life experience that can actually benefit your life and benefit your experience and benefit your mindset. So regardless of what happens with your brain injury, just acknowledge you had a brain injury and take steps to create a life that you love and a quality of life that you're happy with.
Wow. So Jeannie, I know that with Jamie there is a huge epic, there is a huge journey. But I want to know a personal moment for you where you felt that you had to step up and kind of feel like, yes, I am defining my own destiny. This is me. I'm not letting anything define me too. Something that I feel would be inspirational for someone like me and for the world too, because whenever is watching just feels empowered after watching you both talk like that.
Thank you. Yeah, so before Jamie's injury, I had kind of like just skated my way through competing under the umbrella that I could kind of follow Jamie into events and places. And so after her injury, when it was apparent she wasn't going back, I had to, decide for myself, did I want to continue with the sport? And going back to the sport had an emotional challenge to it. And then even since I've had a few injuries, I've actually changed nations. I compete for the country of Vanuatu now, and I do diplomacy work with them, and just building, this life that is connected to Jamie, but it's not just the shadow of her, like making sure that there are specific things within the business and within our social group and my sports that's me and my interest in. Because for a few years after Jamie's injury, the focus had to be on making sure that she was recovering, because she had to recover. And so it was a little bit of a transition into being like, well, now I can also think about things for and about me, just in my best interest.
Yeah. And something that has developed over the last couple of years is with our foundation work and all the structure that we're creating and all these different programs and policy work, is people will have started to say, oh, so Jamie is kind of the voice and ideas, but Jeannie is the powerhouse that gets it done. And that kind of is how we've had a relationship for a long time, especially after my injury. Jeannie is the one who really makes these dreams and ideas concrete and happen.
Hey, can you tell me more about your foundation? Because I want to know more about it.
Sure. So our foundation is Mo Crazy Strong Brain Injury Foundation, and we run programs for brain injury survivors and their caregivers. We do a lot of outreach and social impact work, and we also do policy work where we're working on advancing and changing policy at our state and federal levels to help brain injury survivors and their caregivers.
Oh, okay. So did you find your voice through the foundation, Jamie? Like, do you think when you're going with your foundation and your renewed state as an activist, do you feel like you've kind of created a different identity for yourself? Like you have the Jamie identity, the Jamie 2.0 identity, the survivor Jamie, the athlete Jamie, and then you have Jamie, speaker, public activist, like talking about brain injury. Do you feel like it kind of identifies you in a way?
Um, I think something that's interesting about that part of my identity is that some people, when they look at it now, they're like, "You're so lucky," or "That makes so much sense. It's so smooth." And they're completely not paying attention to the years and
I
years
can't
and
believe people.
yeah, there's so many ways that I could have made so many alternative decisions, and some of them could have been fine. Like I could have decided to have kids much younger, like and that's not an issue to do that, but I chose not to because I wanted to be able to dedicate more time to my career. And
Me too.
then there's other things beyond that that are more negative, like when I was feeling depressed and I was going through those stages, instead of returning to university, I easily could have started drinking way too much. I easily could have started doing drugs. I easily could have felt like I was, when I did feel like I was old and washed up and stuck at that age. I was 23, 24, so I was still pretty young, but I felt so old. I could have made really detrimental decisions to myself. And so this career and this lifestyle that both Jeannie and I are living, we have done so much work to be able to create the opportunities and create the motion. There's so much work that goes into being able to be found and asked to speak at different conferences. And if we hadn't taken so much behind the scenes action, we never would have been able to create those opportunities for ourselves. So I kind of think it's all part of my identity as Jamie 2.0. And I also mentioned sometimes I personally love the traveling and I love the conferences. Like a couple weeks ago, I was at a national neurotrauma conference. In San Francisco. And for like the 2 days that I was there, from like 8 o'clock in the morning to like 11 o'clock at night, I was busy the whole time. People were contacting me. You're on display the whole time. Besides just your speaking, you're also meeting people and on display. And so it's very tiring, but I love that part. I personally have a harder time with some of like the accounting and like business aspects all the behind the scenes stuff, but you kind of need both of those venues if you're creating a company on your own, like Jeannie and I are doing with our foundation. And we need to make sure that we and everyone else we're in contact with respect the work that we're putting in as much as if we were working for a corporate 9 to 5 job. Like both of our my husband and Jeannie's boyfriend have very clear jobs, but our work is just as important.
Definitely, definitely. I totally agree. Okay, so I need you both to give advice on wellness to athletes, whether, like just aspiring athletes, whether, like athletes who are just kind of in the middle stuck or mid-career. I want you to give an advice on wellness because I feel like wellness usually gets overlooked. You're always talking about how to take care of your body, your health, your diet, but I want you to give them, both of you, Jeannie and Jamie, wellness advice.
Oh, I love this. I think that as an athlete, we do a lot of talking about how to deal with stress from being an athlete. And we a little bit forget that we're real life people that, have other issues that aren't connected to being an athlete. Both Jamie and I, we lost our oldest sister a year and a half ago. And so that was something that, you know, we've worked through. And there's been a lot of other family traumas that has nothing to do with being an athlete, but it affects your sport because your mental state is affected. And so I think just acknowledging that, asking for help, you know, being on an antidepressant isn't a bad thing if that's what your medical team thinks is best. Seeing a psychotherapist can be really helpful, especially a sports one if you are an athlete, and just giving yourself permission to go slow and to take time, you know, to find things that slow you down. Like maybe it's a hot bath, maybe it's being on the beach, maybe it's watching a film. But saying, you know, it's okay for me to rest, and it's okay because I won't perform at my best if my mind isn't at my best. And so I need to make sure that that's just as important as my muscles and my skills and that kind of tangible training.
Okay. What
Yeah.
about you, Jeannie?
And I think something that's incredibly important to wellness is the words that we're saying to ourselves and the words we're saying to other individuals. I'm not sure if we always connect the words we're saying to ourselves to wellness, but it has such a big impact. And an example for that is when I was leaving the hospital, I was very weak. So I had been a professional athlete prior to my accident, and all of a sudden, I couldn't walk more than 5 minutes without needing a break. And it was very depressing and humiliating for me to every 5 minutes say, I need a break again. I need a break again. And for me to feel that I needed to keep asking for help, and I was depressed. It was a really challenging situation. So our mom, who has a master's in psychology, she came up with the word choice change for me to say, let's stop and look at the view. And every time we were hiking in Park City, Utah, which has amazing views. And anywhere you're hiking, there are amazing views. Even if you're in the trees and you might not really recognize it usually, if you say, let's stop and look at the view, there's so many views you can always embrace. And so that has turned into a metaphor for every time I feel kind of overwhelmed, stressed, or unhappy, I always stop and look at the view and really notice my opportunities, notice my choices, notice the benefits of the life that I'm living. So that's a really important factor to our wellness, because you can do things that you think might be wellness. Like I've always gone back to a lot of fitness. Fitness makes me happy, so I do that. And before my wedding, I was doing fitness all the time. And after my wedding, it was actually like my wedding was like the chubbiest I've been in a while. And it had nothing to do with how much I was working out. It had to do with the emotional factors of the fact that my sister had just passed away from cancer. And that is so your mental state is so vital to your wellness. You can't just mask it by working out all the time. You have to pay attention to your whole wellness, and that's where those emotions and those words that we're saying to ourselves and the words that we're thinking make such an impact to our experiences.
Definitely. Let's stop and look at the view. Jeannie and Jamie Mo Crazy, thank you so much. It's a delight talking to both of you. You are amazing and an inspiration to the world. I had so much fun talking to you.
Thank you so much. We did as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was great to meet you, and I love this conversation.
Thank you. I love this more. Thank you so much for talking to me. Goodbye.
Bye.